scary part in my line of work in the financial world, I talk to all sorts of people at all ages, have tons of money. Some people don't have money, but the parts that I feel bad for are these 60-year-olds with $5 million in a qualified retirement account that they've never spent, that they have no idea how little they're going to actually keep. It's exposed to all this market loss and they don't know how to actually use it. They look at this thing and then that's what makes them feel good, and they have no joy in their life. They have stress watching that thing. And the saddest part is when they get to the time when they're supposed to spend it, they don't know how to spend it. I think college is changing, and I don't think it's going to be as valuable as it was 20 years ago because of the interweb machine. And you can learn from firsthand from people that have actually done it, not just professors. God bless the professors, but not somebody who's making 50 grand a year. I can learn from someone making $500,000 a year.
Oh yeah.
I think that we're taught to be humble in things, which humility is a good quality in life. However, you have to be able to spend money on yourself and take care of yourself first. Otherwise, you won't be able to take care of others as well as you could. And having the experience of just dropping 10 grand on
And pause. If we're going to say the others part, if you don't value yourself, what are your kids going to do? My first 6 months, I did $100,000. I feel like that's significant.
That's huge. So what was your family income the year prior? Because your husband was in the military.
Yeah, I think he was doing about like 80 something a year.
And then you made 100 in 6 months.
Yeah, life transformative.
What's up? Welcome everybody to another show of Cash Flow Conversations. Today we have a special guest, Cierra Lueck of Cierra Lueck Consulting, another entrepreneur located right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Cierra, thanks for joining me today.
I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to speak with like the king of cash flow.
Yeah, man. It's I love talking about money. Everybody, it's not a taboo topic like it was 20 years ago, but I think people need to learn more about money. So I'm glad you're here because you have an interesting story. Married for 19 years, business owner for a little over 3 years now, hit multiple six figures in revenue within the first 2 years, I believe. And you did all that with 5 kids.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
It's amazing. So 5 kids, you and your husband have been married quite a while. He was in the military. He's kind of entrepreneurial minded too, right?
Yeah, he wrote a book on leadership last year. He's always learning, like lifelong learner. So he is going to start his MBA track. So getting his master's degree this next year. He actually got approved by the VA. The VA is going to be covering all of the costs for that. And he's doing an expedited track. So he'll be done with that in 18 months, like crazy fast.
That is amazing. Good for him. And especially if it's going to get paid for, that's always nice.
Yeah.
So what I'm so excited to talk about, I want to hear your journey. So as most people know listening to this, that, I like to interview entrepreneurs that, talking about the journey from W-2 to 1099. And, with 5 kids at home, I can't tell you how many people I meet that just feel like they're stuck. They can't do anything different than what they're used to. I know people in their 50s that say, oh, we're at the end of our career. We can't pivot. We can't do anything else. We're just going to stay at our job that we hate. And it's like so painful to listen to that mindset. So 3 years ago, you started a consulting company. So tell me about this.
There's so many different directions I could take it. Like you're leaving it very open-ended and very much in my hands. I'm going to take it where I want to go.
That's good.
Okay, cool. So I've always been entrepreneurial minded since I was a kid. I think a lot of us entrepreneurs have that same kind of track. And I feel like because my husband and I have been together for 19 years and I was raised in the church, that I felt like I had to kind of stand in his shadow and support him and be like the really good wife or whatever, like Proverbs 31 wife. And he decided, like, there was a point in our marriage, and there's been like 2 times in our marriage where we felt like we've been married 19 years. So we felt like everything was falling apart. And we thought that we were potentially it wasn't gonna work out. And during one of those times, which of course we made it through, we're still married now, we're very happily married, very much in love. But during one of those times, I looked at him and I was like, you need to pursue this, because if you don't, you're gonna hold it over me and the kids. And I don't want you getting to the end of your life and wondering what if, and then blaming us. Yeah. I was like, so we support you. And if you don't choose to do this, it's your decision. And so he decided to join the military, which has been his dream since he was a kid. It was amazing for him. It was so good for him. And he was in for 8 years and had a really good, I don't want to call it career, because career you have to do like 10 or 20 years or something. But he had a really good time in the military, and he did phenomenal at it. He started as like an E3, And then he did the green to gold program. He had actually gotten to E5. He was up for E6 whenever he decided to go green to gold. And then he went green to gold and he became an officer. And then he actually got his, I think they call it, I don't know if it's butter, but I'm going to say it wrong. Military guys, don't hate me for this. But he became a first lieutenant before getting out. He really wanted to get captain stripes before getting out. But what happened while he was in the military is that one of our kids got really sick. So we have 5 kids, and in 2019, the year before COVID just kind of went bleh to everybody, that was the worst year of our lives. And so it was like in the summer of 2019 that my son was cooking in the kitchen on a Saturday, and he was making brunch as he did. He was 11 years old. We taught all of our kids to cook from a young age. Super cool. And all of a sudden I hear my daughter, who's a couple years older than him, in the background, and she was mad at him that day. So I knew something was up. And she was just like, "Hey, Israel, are you okay? Did you burn yourself?" And I was like, "Hey, babe, can you go check on that?" To my horror, I walk into the kitchen because it's just like really quiet. Nobody's saying anything. And I come in there to find my husband holding my son's hands over the sink in the kitchen. And I'm looking, and it's just like, it's completely silent. Nobody's making any noise. And I look at my son's hands, and the skin on his fingers and palms of both of his hands looks like egg noodles. And what had happened is he had picked up the hot pan and held on to it. Oh. And the reason that it happened was not because it's unsafe for an 11-year-old to cook in the kitchen by himself, but because he was having what's called a focal seizure. And I always like expressing and sharing this whenever I share this story, because there's so many people who just don't even know that this is happening. So focal seizures don't look like typical seizures. Like everyone thinks about like these grand mal seizures where people are like shaking really hard and their body's moving and like they're just kind of eyes rolling back in the head. No, a focal seizure, their eyes are still open, straightforward. They look like they're bright and alert, and their body is still acting on whatever was programmed into their subconscious to continue to do. So his body was probably thinking about how he's going to clean the pan later, ends up picking up the pan and holding on to it while it's still hot. But because he's not there, his body is no longer registering the pain. So he suddenly comes back to, turns back on. He starts screaming and freaking out. And I'm in panic mode. My husband has like this amazing ability to just like in traumatic situations to just be alert, to know exactly what to do, to have a plan. And so we end up taking him to the hospital immediately. We don't even know why this happened. And within a few days, because they put us in for testing really fast, because we had to get a skin graft going as quickly as possible to save the nerve endings in his hands. And so they did all of this testing come Monday and Tuesday as soon as all of the testing facilities were open. And they found out that he had a brain tumor, and that's what was causing it. And they said they have no understanding of why brain tumors happen, why they exist, how long they've been there. They have no clue until somebody starts presenting symptoms. And so because he was presenting symptoms, we were able to find that before he got much older in life. So it ended up being a good thing, even though, like, how is this good? I don't know. Yeah. But he ended up having 4 skin graft surgeries and 1 brain surgery, and he's better now. So, like, let's close that loop. My son is healthy. My son is whole. He is 15. He was 11 at the time. He had had all of these terrible things happen, and then now he is taller than me. His feet are way bigger than mine. His feet are bigger than his dad's. I think he's going to be taller. I think he's going to live a long and healthy life. And so just like so grateful and thankful for that. But that being said, it was during that time, whenever he was going through all of that, that it just like shook me, and it woke me up from like a sleep or a slumber that I was in. And I was just like, I was going into my closet and crying because I didn't want my kids to see how upset I was. And my son was going through a really bad depression, and the medication he was on made him even more depressed, sometimes suicidal. And it was just like really hard. And so I was like, I can't let my son die. And I went into my closet and cried. And then I decided I was going to come out, and I was going to be that like Tony Robbins for my family, like speaking life into them, constantly motivating them, constantly being inspirational, which was not easy.
No.
And I just remember this one day vividly, about 2 months into that I go into my closet and cry, and I come back out, and we had been watching The Last Dance, the one about Michael Jordan. And I came out to my kids and I told them, you can do and be whatever you want in life as long as you pursue it with all of your might. Because he was feeling kind of down on himself. And I didn't want him to believe that like he would just always be the way that he was in that moment. And so I told him that. And then I realized, and it hit me, that I wasn't doing that myself. And he's sitting here watching people like Michael Jordan and now Mr. Beast and, whoever else of these really famous people. He's sitting here watching them succeed. And that's third-hand knowledge.
Yeah.
That's not even second-hand knowledge. And second-hand knowledge is still not as good as first-hand knowledge. If he doesn't see like his roots succeeding, how is he going to know that success is possible for him? And so I started pursuing it with all of my might. I was like, well, what are the things that I really want to do? My husband bought me, like we were talking about before this, my husband bought me a Blue Yeti microphone. He bought me a ring light. He bought me a special camera. He bought me like all the stuff that I needed because I really wanted to have a YouTube channel, which I still haven't started, guys. Don't.
Oh, come on. You still don't have one?
It's coming this next year. It is coming this next year. There are plans in place. Like I have plans. So he bought me all the stuff for Christmas, and I jumped into this one program by Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, the Knowledge Business Blueprint, whenever it first opened. That was at the beginning of the year. So I picked that back up and I tried to use it. I created this event. I created the landing pages, all of that, and I sold 3 spots to it. Woo! See, huge success.
How much was the price? More of the purchase price?
No, it was, so I sold 1 spot at like $197.
Yep.
And I sold 2 other spots to just try and get some people in the door like the day before at $27. So just FYI, the 1 spot at $197 was my mom.
Nice.
And one of the other spots was a lady that was in KBB with me who wanted to support me. And then the last one, my mom paid for a seat for my aunt. So huge success, right in the beginning. Just
family's always the first client, right?
And so, yeah, I was not successful right when I first started. That was before I ever built out any other packages and stuff like that. And it was so funny because I actually started with like something geared more around mindset. And then I was getting like all these people downloading a free lead magnet from me and nobody buying. And I was like, okay, cool. I am switching this. And I was like, I'm going to serve business owners.
Yeah.
And so I built something for business owners, and then I got people to buy, even though it was family. I got people to buy. And so it wasn't great. I wasn't a huge success right away. And then I was like, okay, well, I need to get a degree. I need to get a certification or something from college so people will actually want to pay me. So then I got a grant to go back to school. And with that grant, I started getting into the coursework for social media marketing and digital advertising. And I was like, this is dumb. I already know this stuff. This is so easy.
Yeah.
This is like way too simplistic. Like, is this really what people are paying to go to college for? Like, this is stuff my toddler can do.
Yeah. I wrote down to talk about that in a second too, because I think college is changing, and I don't think it's going to be as valuable as it was 20 years ago because of the interweb machine. And you can learn from firsthand from people that have actually done it, not just professors. God bless the professors, but not somebody who's making $50,000 a year. I can learn from someone making $500,000 a year.
Oh yeah. And then, yeah.
So you got the so you went back for certification.
Yeah, I went back for certification, and then I also joined one of my friends that I met through KBB. I joined their video marketing course that they had. He's actually out here local in the Nashville area as well. Chris Cunningham does, he's a director. He's directed over 40 different documentaries. And then he's actually been the director for like one really popular scary movie, which was surprising. Cool. Not into scary movies. So I don't remember which one it is. And I jumped into his video marketing course. And then I like 2 days later, I got a call from the traffic and funnels team, and that call, I was like instantly sold in. And so I jumped into that instead, and I paid. So like, let's talk about the investment, right? So I invested for the certification course with college. It was like $2,000. And then the video marketing course was like $500 or $600. I don't remember. And then traffic and funnels was $10K. And so which one do you think I put more time into?
I'm going to go with traffic and funnels.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I got in there, it was way better than the college curriculum. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And so I got in there, I invested my time into it. And basically what they were was what I call a gap filler. And I feel like there's just so many people out here that are just trying to get a slice of the market. So they're just like doing the same things as other people, or they're having to invest more time or energy or something like that. And they're not really creating these gap fillers. And so that was like the very first thing that I recognized about that was how much of a gap filler that was for me, because I got my first client like the week before my time was up in the program. I got my first client that week, and I put everything on a credit card. So I wasn't like out cash or whatever. I leveraged other people's money.
There you go. OPM, baby.
And so I had got my first client. I sold them in. It was $1,900 on a 2-pay. So like $3,800 total, but $1,900 for that first collected check. And I just remember getting so excited. I was like, babe, look, I got this $1,900. I was like, anything's possible.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because it's not like, it's so little money, but I still remember like how good it felt.
Yeah, it's not little. I mean, when your first sale was 197 and then you sold 2 at 27, $1,900 coming in is a big check.
Well, so then the next month was $7,700 collected. Nice. And that was with 2 clients. And in that month, I called my dad and I was like, Dad, look, I made $7,700. Like, I am a total badass or whatever. And my dad was like, well, that's nice if you can continue. And I was just like, cool, I'm not telling him about my financial wins anymore.
Yeah, it took the wind out of your sails. I was going to ask you about that, but I'll come back to that in a sec.
Yeah, so then the next month was 12,000 collected. The next month was 20,000 collected. The next month after that was again 20,000 collected. Then huge dip. I actually joined the traffic and funnels team for a little bit, and that sucked my energy and took up so much of my bandwidth and my time. So I had a huge dip. But then the next month I jumped back with 30,000, and so that was the year, like my very first year in business. I learned, don't just look at your revenue month over month. Look at your like the average of the quarter.
Yeah.
And so so that was fun. That was fun to learn those lessons the hard way.
When you
my first 6 months I did $100,000. I feel like that's significant.
Huge. That's huge. So, I mean, what was your family income the year prior? Because your husband was in the military, you know.
Yeah, I think he was doing about like 80 something a year.
And then you made 100 in 6 months.
Yeah. Life transformed me.
Try to be that, you know, the guiding light for the kids and, you know, the positivity. One, it's not easy. It gets old because there's no one that comes behind you and says, thank you, keep going.
Oh, my kids do now. My kids are like, Mom, we appreciate you. Thank you. Keep going. We're so proud of you. Like stuff like that. Stuff that, like, I think the moment that I saw my kids be proud of me for the first time was like, I bought my own car for the first time in my life, like a few months into my business. And wow. I paid for it myself, and I've paid for every single payment on that car myself. And that was like, my husband and I always did everything together. The business was paying me enough to where I could make every single payment. Because that was actually something I didn't talk about, but when I talk, because my husband and I talk about every big purchase, as most good marriages do. Mm-hmm. And for us, $10K into a program was a really big purchase at the time. And so I talked to him about it, and I was like, hey, you know, like, this is how much it is. I really want to do this. What do you think? I just got approved for this $20K credit card. I could put it on that. And he was like, am I going to have to make the payments on that for you? Mm. And I just like that, like, got me. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this. And I was like, if I could just make enough money from like what I learned in here to make the payments on the credit card, it would be worth it.
Yeah.
And then I made more.
It's amazing how we can set the bar so low just to make sure that it succeeds, and then you do everything you can to make it not fail, and then next thing you know, it's actually success that you couldn't even contemplate.
Yeah. And well, so there was the morning formulas. I now call it like my vision map or my identity map. But in the morning formula, like they were saying, and like the way that they taught it, they were like, well, when you put things on this, like, be careful, because whatever you put on here, you are actually going to get. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I put on all the things that I knew were possible if I just worked really hard and stuff like that. And God, please don't put the vision in front of yourself of working hard. That's not what you want in life. But I put all those things on there. And then there was like a couple things that I was like, I don't think it's possible, but just in case, I'm going to put it in here. And then within 2 months, I had my car, and I didn't think it was possible. And within 2 months, I had my car. I'm still just like, wow, that's so fast.
But yeah, wow.
Things that like I'd been waiting for years for, and then boom, I had it. And just people a lot of times will feel guilty about spending or investing money in themselves or in things that make them just really happy. And they're like, well, it's a waste of money and I don't really need that. And I could probably just get a used car, or I could, I don't need to go on that vacation. We could do just a staycation, or I don't need to get the nicer clothes or whatever. And it's like, what treating yourself with respect does for your identity is so massive. Like the confidence that comes from it and the shift that happens, it's insane. And so it's like, if you've been feeling guilty over buying yourself that new car, or if you've been feeling guilty over, buying yourself those new clothes or going on that trip that you've just always dreamed about since you were a kid, just like, I don't know if cursing's okay, but I'm like, just freaking do it.
Freaking do it. Just freaking do it. I agree with you. I think that, we're taught to be humble in things, which, humility is a good quality in life. However, you have to be able to spend money on yourself and take care of yourself first. Otherwise, you won't be able to take care of others as well as you could. Yeah. And having the experience of just dropping 10 grand on...
Oh, and pause. If we're going to say the others part, if you don't value yourself, what are your kids going to do?
Yeah.
If you are putting everyone else before you, what are your kids going to do? It's like, is that really what you want for your kids' future? You want them to just put everybody else first and run themselves into the ground and be exhausted at the end of the day and be weeping in their bed at night and feel so alone even though they have a spouse right next to them? Is that what you really want for them?
Yeah.
No, obviously not.
No, and I think the scary part in my line of work in the financial world, I talk to all sorts of people that, at all ages have tons of money. Some people don't have money, but the parts that I feel bad for are these 60-year-olds with $5 million in a qualified retirement account that they've never spent, that they have no idea how little they're going to actually keep, that's exposed to all this market loss, and they don't know how to actually use it. They look at this thing, and then that's what makes them feel good, and they have no joy in their life. They have stress watching that thing. And the saddest part is when they get to the time when they're supposed to spend it, they don't know how to spend it. They don't know how to spend it on themselves. They don't know what to do. And most of them sit there and chase all this market risk and end up losing money. Last year, I worked with a guy who lost over $1 million. Loses $1 million in the market. Not because he took his grandkids to Disneyland, right? Imagine that. Like, if I lost $1 million through experiences, that's a lot different than losing the money in the market. And knowing when to spend it on yourself and your family, I think is, it's life-changing the way that you view the world. Being able to drop 10K on a course and getting clients within a few months versus going to school for 6 months in a semester or 5 months in a semester, that just delays the gratification. You mentioned when you talked to Jake Grant, who was on this podcast a couple of weeks ago. What did he say to you when you were talking about you need to build out all your content before you actually go live or something?
Yeah. So I was telling him, I was like, yeah. He's like, why are you waiting to start? And I was like, well, because I want to have like all the content in place so I don't even have to worry about it or think about it. And I can just focus on like having fun and doing the activities. And he was like, why don't you just get clients right now? And I was like, yeah, why not? And I was like, because I don't know how, but if you could show me.
Yeah.
He challenged me on a couple of those things because I was like, well, I don't even know like what I really want to focus on as far as the offer. And he's like, yeah, that's something we train on inside of the program. He's like, I'll send you a video. And he did. He sent me one of the trainings from inside the course, which was so cool.
Nice.
Brilliant idea. If nobody's doing that, you don't have to create lead magnets. Just literally send a video from in your course.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you said that you were successful with helping people with their communities. So why not just do that? And I was like, yeah, why not? So it's a really great question. Why not? And it's like, yeah, why not?
One of the things I think that separates entrepreneurs and the rest of the world is their ability to make a decision. And even if I don't know if it's going to be the right decision or the end all be all, I just need to make a decision. Is this going to be for me? And if it's not, I need to get it out of my mind and out of my space and out of my world and never think about it again. But if it is, I need to do everything I can to make it happen immediately. I remember when I was in college, I worked for an entrepreneur. Dude, this guy owned, I can't say his name. He owned all of these childcare centers. Then he sold his childcare center business for $65 million about 12 years later. And he still owns all of the land that every childcare center was built on, just like McDonald's, and he collects rent every month. But I remember working with him, and he would say, we were getting ready for a Christmas party, and we're getting stuff ready. And he's like, I got to go do this, this, and this. And he walked with me. I'm like the lowest guy on the totem pole because I was in college. It was like a part-time gig. And he walked with me to go set up these little bags outside. I'm like, you guys just know how to get things done because you can just make the decision and then you move forward. And so many people wait for the right time and then their life is gone.
I have two things. I have two things on decisions. So the first one, and this is something that I've told people like for 3 years, I've said this. And I've coached more than 350 people on building out their high ticket offers. And this is actually the biggest problem that these people with high ticket offers have, is that they just won't pick something. They keep wanting to change things. They're like, no, I need to change. Oh, no, I should. Oh, the market's not responding or whatever. And the thing is that they never actually decided. And so what I told them is it doesn't matter what you decide. Like, it really doesn't matter. Just pick something and then freaking run with it. And then you have to stick with it long enough to see if it works and actually give it your all for that time and see if it works. And they're like, okay, cool. And then they would start hitting the ground for 30 days. So then I changed it and I was like, okay, no, long enough is at least 90 days. You have to give it your all for at least 90 days and just prove that the process works. You're going to get a couple clients. Even if you don't really like it, cool. You only have, like, you create a small short-term package. Yeah. And then you don't have to work for them for very long. And then you can switch it and do whatever you want. But then you will prove to yourself that you can do it and the process works. But you just have to make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. You said you had two things. So that first one is making the decision and sticking with it for a minute so that that's years.
The second one, it actually comes from, I've been listening to Abraham Hicks. I've been listening to Norman Vincent Peale, his book, The Power of Positive Thinking. And then I've also been listening to Amanda Francis, who wrote the book Rich AF. And sorry, that's me pausing. I'm like, all the curse words.
Yeah, I think we can swear in this podcast. It's not intended for children.
Okay, good. So in those three things that I've been listening to, there's something that's just been resonating and coming up really big. And then I started realizing it's what Jim Rohn talks about and Tony Robbins, and it's what Earl Nightingale said and Bob Proctor and Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. It's like, it's the same principle. And all of a sudden it was just like screaming out at me that we have, so ethereal, this is an ethereal idea, but you need to understand it. Like, the spiritual world is real. So whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, you have a still small voice. You have that energy that you were born with, that ultimate energy inside of you. And when you shut up and just listen, it's giving you inspiration constantly. All of the answers are there. You have this intuition, you get these gut feelings, you know what is right, you know what you shouldn't be doing. And when you just get awareness and pay attention to it, you're going to get these inspired ideas and then you're going to run with them. I bet you can think of one right now, like some inspired idea that you had that you were just like, this is so crazy, it just might work. And you actually took action on it and something really freaking cool happened afterwards.
Yeah.
We all have so many moments like that. And it just like takes like somebody slapping us in the face with a fish or whatever to get us to pay attention that is with us all the time. So this month I have been leaning into just doing whatever I feel inspired to do immediately when the inspiration strikes. There's a quote that was in this game my husband used to play, Civilization, and it said, strike while the iron is hot. And it's like, you got to strike while the iron is hot. You got to strike while the inspiration is there, while you're still excited about it. And so I've been doing that this month and it is crazy. And I have announced so many different things. I have offered so many different things. I have sold new packages that I've never sold before. Wow. And I was just like, it's fun. And I'm just having a lot of fun and just leaning into what I really want and what I'm having fun with. And I love it. Molly Mahoney says, the more fun you have, the more money you make. And I really feel that right now. And it's just following that inspiration and finding what lights you up. They talk about Michael Jordan and what's the guy that broke the 4-minute mile?
Oh, I don't know his name. My buddy Dan Sullivan talks about this all the time. I forget.
Yeah, there's the guy who broke the 4-minute mile. So the thing is that it wasn't the breaking of the 4-minute mile that excited him. It was the getting up and running every single day because he just really freaking loved it. And so many times we fall out of love with the process, which is why we stop seeing the results we once had. And it's like we have to constantly be falling in love with it. And when we fall in love with it, it's just finding that inspiration in the moment and following the inspiration. And it's like, it's so cool when you're the entrepreneur, when you're the founder, when you're the business owner, or you're like still operating as a freelancer. Like, I feel like sometimes, you know, it's like when you're that person, you get to turn the ship really fast. You can be inspired and be like, cool, we're never doing this again. And we're only ever going to do this again. And you can make that decision on the spot. Once you get to have like a big corporate company, like some of my friends like Alaric, who's like in the top 50 Inc. 500, I worked with for Inc. Yeah, he's like in the top 50 of the Inc. 500. Worked with his company for a little bit, helping them with their internal client groups. But with him, it's like he has so many decision makers. So he can make a decision, but then it takes a little bit more time to turn that ship. You don't have that many decision makers. If you are the decision maker of your business, you are in a brilliant place in your life, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah sorry, I'm going to get off that little pedestal for a minute. I heard myself preaching.
No, I like it a lot. I have a saying that since college, I believe that creativity is the spark of life. And I think a lot of people get stuck in a W-2 and, you know, they can't wait for retirement. And really, they just want an excuse to stop living a life that they hate, and they call it retirement.
And so I also recognize, so I've always been a creative person, and I recognize that too much creativity is actually negative. So it's like it's part of that decision fatigue. So creativity is good. Imagination is good. Too much creativity can actually stop you from making decisions because you constantly want to shift things. You constantly want to change things. You constantly get new ideas. And so this is a little like addition to the creativity. When you have creativity, when you are building anything, you just need a rough draft and get the rough draft out and make mistakes as quickly as possible with it, because mistakes are going to give you more feedback than just your ideas of sitting down with it. Like a lot of people will just go into their little hidey hole and or their man cave, or their, like, what are they called? The woman she shed or something. I don't even know. It's so weird. I would never call it that. As a woman, speaking for women everywhere, we don't want it to be a she shed. Okay. Shed sounds terrible. Like, why would I? Anyways. So they go into their little hidey hole, and then they just want to like learn, ideate, create, and then never put it out there to the world. And it's like, how are you going to leverage other people's money? How are you going to leverage other people's audiences? How are you going to leverage other people's authority, other people's posts, all of that, if you're not ever going out and connecting with the other people and putting things out there to the other people? It's like you actually have to get out there.
I agree with you. I think that, you know, you call it stuck in the creativity mode. I think it's just fear of actually executing. I know people like in my family that won't finish projects because then it could be critiqued. So they don't, oh yeah, I'm still working on that. You know, I got a list. Yeah, put it on the list. I'm working on it. No, you're not. You're gonna kick that can down the road forever. So you could call it creativity. When I say creativity is the spark of life, I think of people that are in their mundane W-2s that they just don't like anymore, and that's why it kills them inside. And having ego, you know, Ayn Rand says ego is the fountainhead of human progress. And I think it is. And the difference between the people that get to enjoy that success is those who take action and those who don't. And the people that are constantly getting ready to get ready don't experience it. I hate that idea of getting ready to get ready. I had a coaching business myself for a year that it was fun. We had cool people in the group, but man, I shut that down after about 7 months of starting it, because the exact problem that you described, people cannot choose one thing and stick with it. You know, they think I got to do everything for everybody. Well, if I pick one lane, one niche, What about the other people? Oh, they're still going to come to you, but you got to pick a niche. Like Hormozy, if you don't pick, I'm going to niche slap you.
Yeah, and you have to decide. Sorry, I know you can edit this out, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I heard myself echoing for a second, and that completely like threw me off. I was like, no, I hear myself.
No worries.
Go back to what you were saying. It'll come back to me. If it's important, it'll come back.
What was I saying? I was talking about, you ever heard of the company Our House, the furniture company?
Yeah. Oh, funny story, just a little backstory. My husband, I felt like I married up when I married him. He had like his whole family, like he has a bunch of family in the Mensa Society, and he has like a lot of like really cool people in his lineage. Like his great uncle was one of the 3 founders of guerrilla warfare.
Wow.
And so, just like really cool things in his family's history. And his grandmother actually owned, it was called Volkman Furniture. You can look it up online. It's still like there's stuff online. So they actually had one of their places like burn in some great big fire. So there's like a news article that's still online about it years and years and years ago. And they sold out to Ethan Allen. So anyways, you mentioned furniture and Arhas and everything. And wow. Ethan Allen is very well known. And so they sold out for like several $1 million to Ethan Allen.
Wow.
And this was like 30 years, 30 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, Ethan Allen.
It was a lot more money back then than it is now.
Yeah. There's an Our House truck parked outside my home office here. And I'm just wondering if my wife made a purchase that I don't know about. There's nothing in that store is cheap. So I'm wondering if they're going to that house across the street or coming to this house.
Oh, that's too funny.
So let me ask you this. You talked about trying to be inspirational or being inspirational to the kids and saying, you can do anything. And then you realize, I'm not taking action on my own. Go ahead.
This is what I was going to say earlier. It's that for me, so there's several different personality types. I love different personality tests, and I love psychology behind stuff. I took Myers-Briggs, and I discovered I was an ENFJ. And I also discovered that as an ENFJ, I often have a tendency to put others before myself, and I will use that as leverage now. And so that is actually what leveraged me to start my business. Was I realized that if I didn't start it, that my family was going to suffer. My kids were going to suffer because they weren't going to see me doing that firsthand. And that was the kick in the pants that I needed to get going. And it wasn't for myself. It was for other people, and I will do more for other people than I'll do for myself, which actually can sometimes be a detriment in my business. And so it's like this crazy balance between over delivering for my clients because I want to do so much for them and I want to see them get amazing results, and they do. Like I have 2 clients that have been in the Inc. 5000, and then I have another client who that's her dream for the next year or two. And so I have clients at all different levels, but then I also have my family on the other side who needs me to support them. So it's supporting my clients, supporting my family, supporting my clients, supporting my family. And I've been on this, I've hired 5 different mindset coaches so that I would learn how to also support myself so that myself could sustain supporting these other people. Yeah. So, but yeah, doing it for others was the catalyst that I needed, and realizing how it was actually helping others and how it was actually helping the world by me taking those steps and helping myself.
Yeah. You looking to the book, you ever heard of Ayn Rand? You ever heard of the book Atlas Shrugged?
Say it again?
Atlas Shrugged?
I have not. I've read other books on Atlas, like Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown.
No. So Atlas Shrugged is about capitalism, and if the people who have the ability to employ and create, and the decision makers paused, that the government teaches us to hate, right? Tax the rich kind of idea. If they decided to just stop, the whole world would come off axis. And so Atlas is the Greek god that holds the world up. And so if Atlas shrugs, it's the idea that the world is going to be off axis because of capitalism. And it's an extremely long book. And then there's another book that's a lot easier to read that I like because it's about an architect. It's called The Fountainhead. And The Fountainhead is really good, but it's all about the human ego and the ability to do and take action for what you believe in because you think it's right, not because it's what other people think you should do. And it's all about how the only way to give the world true just is by acting from internal of what you believe it should be right. And it's the opposite of like altruism. It's the opposite of I need to go feed the hungry. And the argument is I will be better at myself, so therefore I can feed more hungry people. There was Alex Hormozy talks about, he said, the people who say money can't buy happiness hasn't given enough away. When he said that, I was like, that hits the nail on the head. But yeah, if you could check it out, the Fountainhead it's a pretty good book. So you were talking too about like how to get the kids motivated and they can do what they believe. Who around you inspired you? Were your parents entrepreneurial? Was it peers that you saw that were being successful? What? I love the story of like, as you're telling them, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to do this for myself. Great moment. But who around you inspired you to even think that way?
So my biological father died when I was less than a year old. My mom tells me that he had 3 businesses when he died.
Wow.
His parents actually had a few nursing homes, and so they always owned, like they were the owners of the nursing homes. My stepdad was a piano tuner, and he also was in bands when I was growing up, and then worked in the studio with a lot of really famous artists down in Houston. And so I'd be on the other side of the studio, like eating Rocky Road and watching Looney Tunes, and he'd be with these nice recording artists.
Nice.
And then my mom, she was always the breadwinner of her house. She always made the most money. And so she worked for Texas A&M University for like 29 years. And while she was there, she like became the director of accounting. So she got paid pretty well from the university, still not as much as like we can generate in our own businesses, but still it was really well for working a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she always had like some kind of side hustle that she was doing to supplement income. And so I was raised around that. Her best friend, who was like a second mom to me, I called her my aunt, but she's really her best friend. She had she was a seamstress, and she had a wedding dress business, and she would make these like $15,000 wedding dresses for ladies. So she had that going on in Dallas until she got carpal tunnel and couldn't do it anymore. But like I was always surrounded by like these powerhouse women who were just out there making stuff happen, and then just like my family. So I feel like it's in my blood at this point. Like there's no denying it. My mom's parents also, they had their own businesses, like all when she was growing up. Like my grandma was one of the first sellers of microwaves, like those really old, big, boxy ones that, you know, you probably didn't want to stand in front of, or you might not have children in the future. And then they had like their own, and they called it Hudson Haas. And I think it's still around today because I think my uncle, I don't really have much contact with him, but I think my uncle still runs it. But Hudson Haas, they were, they serviced like air conditioners and stuff like that. So they built out this like blue collar business and stuff. So I've always had entrepreneurs around me.
I love it. So you got a flavor of it growing up. And I think that's kind of important, that knowing that that stuff's around us, that, you know, people think outside the boxes can be so important without even talking about it. But just growing up in that atmosphere, I think leaves a long lasting impression. Yeah. So if you have any advice for someone who is a stay-at-home mom of 5 kids or 7 kids, and they want to get started, what do you tell them? How do you tell them to get started?
Well, first off, it depends on what getting started is. The very first thing that they need to do is they need to write down what they actually want in life. One of the easiest ways that I've found to actually figure out what you want, for me, the very first thing I did was I revisited my childhood and all of these dreams that I suppressed for years. And I was like, you know, hey, it's actually possible. Like I still believe that I'm going to be well known for singing, and somebody is going to pay me to come sing on a stage. Like I've been a singer on stage. I still believe that it's possible. I'm 37. I'm still young. It can happen. Other people didn't even start until their 40s or 50s. It can happen. So that's one of my childhood dreams, though, that I'm just like, you know what? This isn't going to die. Like I'm going to do it. I'm just deciding when it's the best timing for me and how I want it. My dad always discouraged me from that particular goal because he said it's a really hard life. So what I would encourage you is when you dream and when you're ideating about what you really want, don't let the limitations of others' viewpoints stop you, because now when it comes to the singing world for me, it's a completely different world. I could have a YouTube channel, record YouTube videos at home, and I could make a lot of money just from that. I don't have to travel and leave my family. I don't have to go anywhere unless I just really want to. And if I choose to, like that's my choice.
Yeah.
But I don't have to live it the way that somebody else's limitations believe that it has to be done. We're in such an abundant and prosperous time in our lives where people all over the world, there's a few countries that maybe not, but most countries in the world right now have immense opportunity at their fingertips with the online space where they can make so much money so easily, where they can change their life and change their family's life, where they can escape poverty, where they can completely turn around their entire lineage that might have been living in poverty for years. We live in such an amazing time. And so there's nothing holding you back. There's nothing stopping you except your own mindset, your own limitations. So just the first step is just sit down and decide what you want. And if you're going to listen to an audio that will help you with this, I'm going to give you a free one. It's on YouTube. It's by Earl Nightingale. It's called The Strangest Secret. Sit down, listen to that, and then dream.
I love it. So action. It's what's it called on YouTube? Earl Nightingale, what?
The Strangest Secret.
The Strangest Secret. And it's all about clarity with mindset, or?
It is one of the best mindset audios. I've probably listened to that more than 100, 150 times in the last year and a half, 2 years, something. I don't know. I go back and I listen to it, and I'll just listen to it over and over again. Bob Proctor taught this principle. He was the first person I heard this principle from, but he said the first time you listen to something, what's going to happen is your mind is going to have ideas, and it's going to be sparked, and you're going to start going down these bunny trails, and you're going to miss some things. And he's like, and that's okay. That is what's supposed to happen. Come back and listen again. There's a really cool quote. It says, no man steps in the same river twice, because he's not the same man and it's not the same river. And so every time you listen to something, you are going to hear something new. You are going to think things in a different way. You're going to hear things that maybe the person intended that you never even knew before, because you just didn't have the understanding that you do the next time you listen to it. Even if you listen to it like immediately after, back to back, you're going to hear something new. And so if you really want to, if your environment, and this is a really big thing as a stay-at-home mom, my environment, like it's like you become the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I had 5 kids. My husband was working all the time. Yeah. Guess who I became the sum total of? They were just little me's running around. So it was just like the degrading of me, the simplest form of me and stuff like that. Like that's not what you want. And so the way that you can hack this or optimize this for yourself is we have so many free audios and videos and books that we can listen to now while you're doing the dishes, while you're going for a walk, maybe you're doing a workout, you're on the treadmill, whatever. You can listen to an audio of these other people who have gone somewhere that you've never been before, who have done things that you've never done before. Just pick your people, maybe get 1 or 2 people. I usually have one person that I'm listening to at a time, and then I'll jump back to another one, and then I'll come back to that person, and then I'll pick another person. But find those people to put in your environment. They talk about this in Think and Grow Rich. They talk about like your round table and sitting down with your round table and asking them questions. And that the way that you get to learn those people and how they think is by reading books, listening to audios, watching videos, all of that, like immersing yourself in them. So you can pull that person into your environment anytime you want to. So I'm sitting here, I'm spending time every day with Earl Nightingale and Bob Proctor, sometimes Tony Robbins, sometimes Les Brown, sometimes Jim Rohn, sometimes Abraham Hicks, sometimes Mel Robbins. I'm spending time with these people. Napoleon Hill has a really cool audio or video series on YouTube for free. It's the 13 Keys to Success. I'm spending time with these people every single day who made millions and millions, which equates to billions and billions in our time.
Yeah.
Like I'm spending time with them all the time. You don't even have to pick people now. You can pick people who have passed and left trails, like left the breadcrumbs for us. So, yeah.
So there's really no excuse, honestly. So that was great. You say, don't let others' opinions or limited opinions limit your ability, and leverage the free resources around you and get clear on what you actually want your life to look like, because everybody's going to be different.
Absolutely.
Wow. Cierra, thank you so much for hanging out today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. You
My pleasure.
give a great platform for people. So if anyone else, you can use this. You can use this for anyone in the future. If anyone wants to be on an amazing podcast and have a really great conversation, this is the place to come.
Love it, man. I'll put some links in the description too, so people can get a hold of you and learn about the packages that you offer, so that they can pick your brain and learn from you as well. So check out the links in the description. And Cierra, thanks again.